Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Manga Ryder, and today I want to tell you guys a story. A story that has been happening for over a month now, with so many twists, turns, and shreds of luck that it's one that could possibly never be replicated. A story filled with corruption, hatred, backstabbing, cowardice, and has so many spins to the narrative that it is almost convincing enough to make someone see a false truth if they do not dig to the source of the conflict. This story I'm about to tell is one that will expose the importance of something I've wanted to talk about for a long time, but unfortunately I never knew how to properly explain it. That something being context. This story is the tale between Dillin Thomas, a person you've probably heard me talk about in the past, Sonic Legacy, and two of its staff members, named Celeste and AWF. Or as I will call him for the rest of this video, Off. The story lit its spark in 2018, where Sonic Legacy, after hyping up the production of their fan comic named Sonic Legacy, finally released their first issue to the public for all to see on September 20th. It was met with praise and applause, and interest in it perked for a little while with the trailer released on Sonic Paradox's channel on July 27th. Until a member of staff went rogue. Jesse Pajamas, the rogue YouTuber in question, made a 2-hour-long video making fun of the first issue of the comic, and crossed a line with releasing all the inside information about the project to the public, including scripts, future issues, and exposing Celeste, the leader of the group, to be doing some cringy stuff. Small amounts of drama ensued, even going as far as to have Celeste threaten Jesse with strikes, but aside from that, nothing really sparked into anything serious aside from Jesse deleting his video with the inside information and just leaving up the review. Dillin Thomas enters the story when he and Jesse were connected, and he gives Jesse the A-OK to have Jesse and him make a video on Sonic Legacy on Dillin's channel, and reading a fanfiction that Jesse made for his 30k subscriber special. Because of the videos made on Dillin's channel, Sonic Legacy started to brew some bad blood between themselves and Dillin, but again, nothing really came out of it aside from the occasional jab or two. The drama died over time until we fast forward all the way to February of 2020, when Dillin, who has been following Sonic Legacy for about 2 years, decided to rejoin the Sonic Legacy Discord server and made a mistake. In the Sonic Legacy Discord server, there are many different chat rooms that talk about all kinds of things, a very common thing to see in Discord servers. And 2 of the rooms in that server are self-promotion and legacy chat, where the only thing that the people in the server could talk about was the comic Sonic Legacy was making. The reason why Dillin was even in the server at all was because Sonic Legacy has a thing that they will promote other Sonic fan comics at the back of each issue they make, and he planned on paying Sonic Legacy for an ad to promote his own Sonic comic called The Drifting Edge, a comic I've reviewed in the past, video in the card. He sent a link to this comic to the Legacy chat, and not the self-promotion chat. This action caused a tiny bit of a ruckus, where a small handful of people attempted to call him out on things he'd done in the past, but before the situation could fully fester into an all-out flame war, the situation was quickly de-escalated by a person named Off, one of the leaders in the Legacy server, and is the one responsible for who gets to associate with Sonic Legacy. Think of him as a gatekeeper, if that makes it easier for you. Off and Dillin had a small talk in their DMs in which Off explained to Dillin that people were aware of his history, and after talking to other members of staff, told Dillin that they didn't want to associate with him due to his edgy past on not his YouTube, but his Discord and his Twitter. To which Dillin, while finding it stupid that they used those sites as a means to not associate with him, as those are the 2 sites where he puts on a shitposting edgy character, agreed to the terms, made a tweet saying he disagreed with their tactics, and didn't want to associate with Sonic Legacy anymore. However, upon doing some research, Dillin found out that Off, the person who was in charge of letting people into Legacy, was a porn writer, who wrote erotic fanfiction of Tempest the Dolphin, a character in Sonic Legacy, and even has art of the 2 of them going at it. All of this being things that Legacy are completely aware of. And with this information, Dillin proceeded to start shit with the Legacy team, exposing them as being hypocrites. Why did he label Sonic Legacy as hypocrites? It was because the Sonic Legacy team wanted to uphold a family-friendly image, and since they had that mindset, they did not want to associate with Dillin because he's not what they deemed to be family-friendly. But considering that Off is a member of the staff and is a porn writer, to which anyone would say isn't too family-friendly, that means that Sonic Legacy separated Off from his art, but didn't separate Dillin from his art, which makes them hypocrites and shows that they have a double standard. There is another time that Sonic Legacy had a double standard lurking in this story, but that will be for later. Sonic Legacy tried to frame Dillin as being anti-porn and not separating art from the artist with this point in a call with him, but Dillin's entire argument to that discussion was that he saw it as hypocritical that they applied rules to him that they didn't do to Off. Not that porn is bad or that he doesn't know how to separate art from the artist. Dillin, seeing that they failed to see his point, decided to say that they were done, ended the call, and went on with his life. However, now that he had this fanfiction from Off and realizing he owed people some videos, Dillin decided to announce that he was going to read one of Off's fanfictions on his channel on March 30th, to which Off responded quite positively. If anything, Off was actually excited that Dillin was going to read his fanfiction, seeing it as a chance of free publicity and promotion, even going as far as to ask Dillin if he could be a part of it, which Dillin denied because he thought Off would have killed the mood. When the video was up the next day, Off was delighted, saying that he laughed so hard the whole time and that people should like the video because Dillin said he'd do more if he got enough feedback. Even when he got rickrolled on April 1st, Off didn't see this whole thing as bad at all. If anything, Off was taking all of this with very good spirits, promoting the videos, taking the criticism, just generally being very sweet about the whole ordeal despite the shaky past, which is kind of rare, and I find it commendable that someone is able to laugh at themselves that much. Which makes this story all the more confusing because 2 days later, on April 3rd, Dillin received a false copyright strike on his Rickroll video, the strike coming from Off. Off, now doing a complete 180, started demanding Dillin that he meet certain demands he made on his Twitter, otherwise he won't remove the strikes. And not even a few minutes later, Dillin received another false strike, this time on the video about Off's fanfiction, once again, by Off. When confronted as to why he did it, Off explained that Dillin used his art in a non-transformative way and using his art in the thumbnail. I will be ripping this apart later, do not worry. When people started calling Off out on his strikes, Off tried to backpedal and say that he didn't want Dillin's income to be destroyed, and said he tried to come to a mutually beneficial compromise. However, he never once gave Dillin a warning that he was going to strike the videos, because he was blocked by Dillin because he tried to self-promote himself on YouTube, which is against YouTube's rules. And yet despite knowing that he couldn't contact Dillin to give him a warning, he proceeded with this anyway, even going as far as to change his demands to having Dillin allow him to comment on his stuff and apologize to him for dragging his and Legacy's name through the mud, despite him being cool with it at the start. Dillin, realizing that he couldn't fight back, did all of the demands Off told him to do, and Off tried to remove the strikes by contacting YouTube, and Dillin proceeded to take down all of his videos attached to Legacy's name. While all of this was happening, Dillin had to privatize and temporarily take down his Twitter because his Twitter was being mass flagged by people who were behind Sonic Legacy, which Off called him out for because he was under the assumption that Dillin took it down because he was going back on his word. A whole day goes by and Dillin still doesn't have the strikes removed, and he calls out Off on his comic account telling him that he still has the strikes, and that he would have a peace of mind if Off took down the strikes. Off responded with this, saying that Dillin's peace of mind is none of his concerns, keeping the strikes up even though he showed proof before of him talking to YouTube to remove said strikes, and that Dillin has spent years talking shit, and he did all of this to himself. This is where I get involved. I decided that I was going to respond to one of Off's particularly bad tweets and responded to him with an extremely long thread, pointing out how unfair the comparison he was making was, telling him that Dillin's YouTube and Patreon is his only source of income, explaining how the punishment doesn't fit the crime, telling him how Dillin is a troll and how striking him was not a good move, explaining how the strikes were unfair, exposing him on the grounds that the deal was rigged from the start and why he doesn't look like the good guy, ordering him not to see this as an attack because I wasn't insulting him, showing him how easy the situation would end if he just removed the strikes, and pleading him to make the right choice. Off took my thread surprisingly well, but still told me that his mind was made up. And needless to say, I wasn't going to take that for an answer. Off responded to me with his own very long thread explaining his whole side of the story, telling me how Dillin was doing targeted attacks against him, making Off's work seem canon to Sonic Legacy, threatened Legacy with a legal suit if they didn't fire him, Off talking about how mods panicked and all agreed that this was all Dillin's doing and Dillin's whole online presence being his own fault, Dillin's apology not being done in good faith because he deactivated his Twitter, Off justifying his strikes by saying he has the right to take the videos down because he thought the videos weren't transformative in his completely subjective opinion, proceeded to say that he didn't want this to happen and that it was all Dillin's fault, saying how he gave Dillin every opportunity to avoid this even though he didn't, and saying that he will drop all of this if Dillin goes above and beyond, swallows his pride, and moves on. After reading this thread, I shot back again and countered a few of his points and misconceptions, and basically coming to the same conclusion that if Off just removed the strikes, the entire show would be over. After another long thread, Off decided to take it to DMs, and I agreed to do so. We talked a little bit more and I allowed Off to continue explaining his side of the story and respond to my second thread, where Off proceeded to say that separating the art from the artist is different for Dillin because his whole character goes way beyond his art, telling me how they were still justified in not wanting to associate with him because of his personal history in the past. He started showing me screenshots of Dillin telling his fans to go bully him. He made a point that he never once bragged about having Dillin's income destroyed, said that Dillin was going to threaten doxing his personal information, told me how he was taking the moral high ground by telling people not to attack him, trying to tell me that Dillin didn't want to partner with them from the start and instead just wanted to start drama, repeating again that Dillin did all of this to himself, giving me a new perspective by showing me screenshots exposing that only 2 people attacked Dillin, which I can confirm by jumping into the server myself, Celeste being fair with his points to not partner with Dillin, me bringing up a point he made, which was a mistake because Off misspelled NP to no, Off repeating to me that this was all an elaborate ruse, and going as far as to try point out Dillin's messages as lies. Off tried explaining to me that he was still justified in his strikes because Dillin used art of his character and that Tempest the Dolphin is their own intellectual property. I thanked him for his side of the story and said I wanted to talk to Dillin about this, and Off agreed, which I didn't because I completely forgot. I'm very sorry. But I stood my ground and told Off to just remove the strikes, and even tried to use an example of a past drama that involved not only Dillin, but myself. Off responded saying that this was once again Dillin's fault, and he twisted my words by saying that all I told him was that this was an ongoing problem. I ended up not responding to this because this was a lot to take in, and I left the situation for a while to gather my thoughts. 2 days pass and Off messages me again being curious about Dillin saying anything as he got a friend request from him a while ago and he wasn't responding to him, and out of nowhere asked me if I wanted to be a neutral party in a call with them. So when Dillin said this,
Manga's the one that arranged the call. I didn't.
That's not true. It was all Off's idea, not mine. I agreed to be in the call and we went to Discord where we began talking. Dillin and Off were not starting on good terms, and after them both asking for my trust, we eventually got into a voice chat and began talking. A few things were cleared up here and there until Off hit us with a bombshell saying that Dillin had a 3rd strike, which Dillin confirmed by checking his channel, meaning that his channel would be terminated if he left that screen, basically having his channel held hostage. All that Off had to do was to remove the strikes, but he didn't know how. However, Dillin had an idea and said that if Off were to give me his account, I'd be able to get them removed. So after a few intense minutes, I managed to remove the strikes, and a final deal was made. Dillin would remove all of his videos about Sonic Legacy so Sonic Legacy can't strike him, and the staff of Legacy was to leave Dillin alone if he left them alone. Dillin, to go through with his promise, had a discussion with Dumbsville because they were going to release a video about Sonic Legacy they made 2 days before the ceasefire, and decided not to go through with it. A few days go by and all was peaceful, until one of the members of Sonic Legacy started to talk trash on Kiwi Farms. Dillin was notified of this by Cedric, a member of his server. Dillin told Off to talk to this user to remove the post, which they did, and Dillin thanked Off and dropped it. Off proceeded to respond to Cedric's post after Cedric talked about it on Kiwi Farms. Dillin, now seeing that Off was arguing with Kiwi Farms, told him that he was done, immediately cut ties with Off, and deleted his chat logs with him. Off as revenge for Dillin blocking him, proceeded to completely destroy the deal and trash talk on Dillin's Kiwi thread, spreading the same story he told me with the same lies, and openly admitting to striking Dillin on Kiwi Farms. After finding out that Kiwi Farms wasn't going to buy any of his story, Off buckled and began apologizing, blaming his autism on his actions, and then started telling the exact same story to the Legacy server when new people started joining, asking about the situation because of Dillin releasing his stream and Dumbsville releasing his video, made a rule saying that if people want to talk about Dillin, they had to keep it in general chat, and he's crying on Twitter to this very day. Do you remember the part where I mentioned that Sonic Legacy had another double standard lurking in the depths of this story? Well, here it is. Enter a person named Alex McGee, an artist who got involved with the world of Sonic Legacy from almost the very start. His story is one of the reasons why Dillin decided to start being very against Sonic Legacy, and after hearing this story, I think you'll know why. I DM'd Alex asking him for an interview, and with his permission, I will be giving his side of the story. So from here on out, everything that you will be hearing are words from Alex, not me. To provide some background, I was in the Legacy Discord server ever since it went public, seeking to join their project as a penciler. From the moment I popped in there, I had been auditioning for months, constantly updating things and trying my hardest to please them. I was given a bunch of critique, which became a source of anguish after the 4th month of auditioning. Things that we pointed out were basic, like proportions, and when I got done chipping away at that, I got a few peeves with my style. Their sticking point with me was how angular everything looked, despite telling me they were looking for something similar to Tracy Yardley, which is angular by default. This became a series of nitpicks that grew the more I did anything. The early signs of my frustration started to show when the staff started getting pushy, and I took a break after getting burned out. Once I felt everything was perfect, they shot me down over page compositions, something that was never mentioned before, and I got torn a new one by a staff member who's no longer there. That whole thing was eating away at my mental health until one day I snapped, leading to a small argument in general chat. The staff were more aggressive towards me over almost anything, no matter how little it was. Flash forward to the Jesse drama, and I ended up having a mental breakdown and going into Dillin's server, the only place he was at the time, to tell Jesse how they treated me. Sonic Legacy caught wind of this and got me back on their side, but I was always a middleman for them. I always gave them a heads up on things, and kept tabs on people with their past drama up to that point. My art was crippled, and I fell into a rut of learning basic techniques that came natural to me all over again, which was upsetting. At that time, I met Dillin through a friend who referred to me to join him for Edge Legacy. Once that started, I gave them all the information they needed throughout the production, even giving them pages, which made me regretful at first because I remember that they encouraged me to go to other places if I couldn't get in with them. In the summer of 2018, I was slowly recovering and feeling confident in myself, which made me put up a few images and tell them I can make better stuff without their input and by doing whatever works. This led to an even bigger argument than before, resulting in me having another breakdown and ghosting them for about 4 months. Edge Legacy had been completed by the time I was brought onto Sonic Legacy by Celeste after he hooked me up with Paradox. I was supposed to be storyboarding on there, which I didn't want to do, but I did it anyway at a slow pace with no complaints. The staff were treating me better than before, but then a new guy I didn't even know was always bugging me. This is where things get dicey. The release of Edge Legacy made the staff have a meltdown for a bit, and I woke up to about 4 pings. Some staff took it personally, and I had to tell them like every other time that I had no ill intent when making it. For the following months, the staff would get aggressive with me yet again, and that new guy got more persistent and tried to get away with calling me retarded. I called him out on this, and we argued with each other, leading to him calling me a contrarian over the constant jokes I made and differing opinions, and that he hates my guts because I lacked the passion for the project and just wanted my name slapped onto it. After that, there would always be a staff member that was mad at me, and the straw that broke the camel's back came in. I told them I was planning on bringing Edge Legacy back and even gave Celeste a heads up before telling anyone else. They just told me to do me, and left it at that. When Dillin wanted to get an ad with Sonic Legacy, they had a discussion in the staff chat over letting him partner or not, to which I vouched for Dillin as I felt he deserved it. They continued to talk crap about him, and less than 2 hours later, Dillin posted his tweet thread about the denial, which led to more crap talking and calling him a baby. After that, I got replaced because I had too much on my plate, yet Celeste never removed my role despite me telling him on 2 separate occasions. Once someone noticed I hadn't done any work for a while, I finally had my role removed peacefully. The next day I put some art up, and Off takes a jab at me saying something like, "I thought you were still working on that Edge Legacy comic. Nice to see you doing things other than that." To the surprise of me, 5 days later, Celeste just goes, "Here we go," followed by Off attacking me in general chat, talking as if he knows everything and making outlandish assumptions. I try to get him to follow the rules and DM me, but he refuses and continues, only for about 3 staff to step in to apply more pressure. I try to correct them on all their falsehoods and they don't believe me, saying I'm playing the victim like always, causing random server members to hop in without a clue, and the one guy who tried to help me got server muted. Off told me to make a choice. Either drop Dillin and own up to my mistakes, which I already did, or get out. I was breaking down at that point, so I nabbed the screenshots before typing an apology and leaving. I DM'd Celeste immediately about him breaking my trust, to which he brought me back to his side while informing me that he told everyone to keep their feelings about Edge Legacy under wraps. The next day I made a tweet thread about it, and another staff member DM'd me saying they didn't hate me. Off responds 3 days later telling me nobody hates me, my leave was an anonymous vote and not his doing, as well as telling me why I had to go. He expressed his concerns and told me that I was welcome here anytime if I dropped Dillin. He then ends the conversation saying I should remember this for if anything hits the fan, as they won't be there to defend me. From then on, Sonic Legacy continued to talk about me behind my back, and when I found out, I lost all respect and loyalty I had, resulting in me saying a few things only to be told by Celeste he's cutting all contact with me. I was also banned from Sonic Paradox at that exact moment. All I can say is good riddance, and that I hope the 2 running this thing can leave me alone and get a grip, because the staff, excluding the 2 who started this all, are most likely against what they've done, and how far they went. Like always. As I have been telling this story, you might have assumed that Off is the main villain in this whole debacle, and while he has done a lot, he wasn't doing it solo. There is another person involved, and that person is someone I mentioned at the start of this video. Enter Celeste. During the time when Off gave Dillin 2 false strikes and they made a compromise, I'm using the word compromise very, very loosely, which made Off get rid of the strikes at first, Celeste came in and said in a tweet, "Unless situations change, the video takedown for other material, your 3rd strike as you like to call it, has been requested to be revoked." What this means is that Celeste also filed a strike, meaning that Dillin's channel was supposed to be taken down, but because they didn't all go through and Dillin went to Twitter complaining about it, it was only then that they decided to make a compromise. And do you remember when I mentioned that Dillin had a 3rd strike when I was in the call with him and Off? The 3rd strike was from Celeste, a strike that he made on the 6th of April, 1 day before we had the call, and a few days after the compromise. So as you can clearly see, Celeste had some involvement in this whole chapter of drama. At least, that's not what they think. On the 21st of April, a person decided to confront Celeste about what happened, and Celeste said some interesting things, which I'm going to read to you. However, I should give you a heads up, because the person Celeste and Off, yes, Off got involved, are responding to was server banned and all the messages from them are gone. So if Celeste looks like they're going schizophrenic, you'll know why. Nah, it's going to be like that. You probably only heard it from that one side who likes to mix the details. Without an E, but yes. Is what true? Did I, or did Legacy? Are you asking if there's some sort of hive mind mentality to try to slander and shut someone down? You're in the wrong group for that. No, I am not. I asked a direct question that you have yet to answer. Let me ask one more. Are you here to learn and be part of the community, or here to break one of the rules about bringing outside drama into the server? Bruh. Did Legacy flag videos? No. Did a staff member whose works were being used to slander a community? Yes. Next topic. Also, do yourself and your buds a favor and learn the difference between trademark and copyright. You'll thank me later. It's not scummy. It's a violation of YouTube's terms of service. Businesses and professionals do so all the time. Okay. Because that's the reason. Ask yourself this. If you must absolutely know, I was the one who flagged the videos. If that's the reason, then why does Jessie Pajamas have videos for issues 1 to 4 up, with no flags? If someone builds a channel and ends up becoming monetized, but it's their only source of income, and that YouTube realizes that it goes against their platform, then whose fault is it at the end of the day? Just gonna say this now. The server has rules. You break them, they're enforced. Indeed, I am him. You got questions? DM me. If you want truth, there's plenty of screenshots that Off can provide, some of which contain now deleted information from Dillin's end. Go handle that on DMs, because Off was the one involved regarding the entire debacle. General chat is not the place to air out anyone's dirty laundry. Anyone can ask questions. It's more so a matter of how they portray themselves and if they're trying to drag drama from location into here. There's nothing to hide in here, but as others have said, the one you want to speak to is Off. No one else here was involved in any form of debacle, debate, communication, so no need to air out anything here or tie them into it when it's unrelated. People can disrespect me all they want, VJ, it doesn't mean anything to me. They're welcome to do so in DM, but not drag others into a mess that doesn't involve them. There's always going to be people who don't like you or things you work on. Laugh it off, and keep doing what you do. Why would I incite more drama? He had full right to protect his work. If it violates YouTube's terms of service and it was used to make our community look bad by associating separated work with the community against the content creator's wishes, then yeah, I am. Why does Dillin not have a job? I have, as I've encountered them, yes. Well, if his sole source of income is going against the platform's community guidelines, then he has no one but himself to blame. And I share no pity in it. Only going to give you one more warning, J. Greyman. Stop trying to bring in outside drama into the server where it didn't originate. It's outlined in the server rules. I DM'd him. He hasn't responded. Alright, no open attacks in the server Off. Staff aren't exempt. I've been holding back my thoughts for this entire video, mainly because I think it's best to get the facts straight before I could start giving out an opinion. As much as I wanted to just tell you my thoughts as I told the story, I do feel like it would have killed the pacing of my video. So now that you've heard all of the stories, at least the stories that I want to tell right now, here are my own personal thoughts. Sonic Legacy is the most toxic community I've ever seen from this fandom. I hate using the word toxic because of how often it's been thrown around, but I mean it. These people are genuinely disgusting. I'm just going to say my thoughts about Off and Celeste because they're really the only two that did anything significant in this drama. I've never seen two people be so inconsistent with rules for people that they like and for people they don't like, going as far as to take something as simple as a disagreement like as a form of a personal attack. The fact that this was all it took for you guys to have a mental breakdown and go as far as to kick and strike people disgusts me. I've never seen two people be so aggressive and rude to members of their staff just because they associate with people that they don't like, and yet on the other hand, be so spineless when confronted with contradictions because they can't argue with the facts. The only things that you use are emotions and sympathy points to get the higher up in a debate. So when you find out that your opposition isn't falling for it, you will ban the opposition so you look like you won, or change the goalpost to talk about something that was never even part of the conversation to begin with, be it morals or how other companies conduct themselves. Yes, Off, I have listened to that call that you had with Dillin. Needless to say, I am shocked that you managed to form even one coherent sentence. I've never seen two people be so apathetic in threatening someone's livelihood all because the person made fun of them with insults that rival a 12-year-old. I know that for an absolute fact that if the barrel of the gun was pointed in your direction, you would justifiably call all kinds of foul, but because it's against someone that made fun of you, your moral compass is thrown completely out the window. You can say that you were justified all you want, but because your copyright is injected into a fan-made project about a franchise that you don't own, and the fact that all of your characters and the whole concept is based off of Sega's property, your copyright never has and never will be just. You abused the copyright system, you sent false DMCAs with the only thing used being your completely subjective opinion on fair use, which I can now definitely say that you don't have the slightest grasp about how it works, and you held someone's channel hostage, making him do whatever you say under the delusion that you were doing it because it was your right, and not because of the fact that Dillin said stuff that you don't like. Lie all you want, but you know I'm right. On top of all that, you people can't even stick to your deals. Even after the compromise to get rid of the strikes at first, Celeste still decided to go and strike Dillin anyway on a different day, almost killing his channel. And Off, even after getting the strikes removed, even getting a post made by someone from Sonic Legacy on Kiwi Farms removed, decided to completely shatter the deal and dig his own grave by lying again. The fact that you went to Kiwi Farms and expected to get sympathy when you openly admitted to striking someone's channel completely baffles me. It really does. And it makes me disgusted that you decided to blame all of this on your autism. Autism does make it hard to read emotions and interactions, yes, but it doesn't suddenly turn you into the sociopath that doesn't care about people at all. Autism is the last thing that makes someone apathetic. As someone who never uses it as an excuse because I know it's ridiculous. So stop crying on Twitter. You did all of this to yourself. Well, doesn't that sound familiar? I also want to point out your complete and utter stupid reasoning for kicking Alex out of your project. Guilty by association is by far the worst reason to drop someone and the worst tactic to try and smear someone. I'm not sure if I need to explain this to you, but I guess I'll give it a try. Just because I associate with someone, that does not automatically mean that I support or agree with everything they say or do. Alex is his own person with his own motives and his own reasoning. And to claim otherwise just because he hangs out with people that you don't like is ludicrous. It makes you look controlling, treating people like sheep who can't have their own opinions, and if they don't fit into the mold and decide to go elsewhere, the level of cruelty and dogpiling that you allow to happen in your server, even trying to get out of it even though you were the spark that lit the fire, is vile. You people are animals, telling people not to use words and threatening someone's online presence because they called you a name. It's a pathetic demonstration of trying to have authority, and after reading through those screenshots, I now completely understand why Dillin was furious with you. I've never felt so angry after reading screenshots in my entire life. Your smugness when telling your stories is also something I find to be completely infuriating. There's just so much ego, and so much of this condescending attitude when you start explaining your side as if you've done absolutely nothing wrong. Celeste, these messages from you made me sick. How can you be so fine with having a member of your own staff commit such vile behavior and mock it as if it wasn't a big deal? How in God's name have you kept your status for this long? It genuinely confuses me. But above all of this, the thing that I find to be the most disgusting part about you two are the lies. I've never seen two people that are so willing to lie about things that factually happened and twist the story to make themselves look like victims, because them owning up to their mistakes makes them look bad. Because heaven forbid that striking someone after saying you were cool with them comes off as a little contradictory, and that giving someone a strike makes you technically involved. Celeste, you can't lie your way out of this. You have been caught red-handed with being involved in this situation after you sent your strikes to Dillin. You're now just realizing that people are starting to speak up about it, and rather than just admitting to your wrongdoings and maybe even apologize, you're lying your way out of it because you can't handle the heat, you're banning people for breaking a rule that does not even exist, and you are silencing people for speaking up. I don't know about you, but that sounds like the cry of someone who is losing and can't deal with it. And that is pathetic. You are scum. You are nothing but human scum. I'm sure that a lot of you have forgotten about the start of this video, and I don't blame you. This video has been very long. No, I'm not apologizing for that. But the thing I wanted to highlight at the end of this story was the importance of context. And the reason why that was because when I entered this drama, I didn't know the full story. When I made my first thread to Off, I didn't know that he was cool with the videos at first. I always thought that he hated them from the beginning, which was why I was being nice to him in that thread, even when I was calling him out on his lie about the deal. When Off responded to me, he never mentioned that part of the story, and instead tried to spin it as if Dillin was doing targeted attacks against him and members of staff. And the saddest part is, I almost fell for it. I almost believed him. I only found this out when Dumbsville released his video with Dillin. Keep in mind, when Dumbsville released his video, this was after my thread. This was after our DMs. This was even after the call that got the strikes removed, and Off never told me the truth. He had all the power in the world to tell me the full story, and yet didn't, because if he mentioned that part, that would have changed everything. Are you guys now seeing how by just adding that tiny bit of extra context, it puts this entire story in a whole new light? Because now I do. I still stand by everything I said in both of my threads, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything back. But I know that if I was aware of what happened beforehand, I wouldn't have been anywhere near as nice as I was. And it makes me feel like I was betrayed. I trusted you, Off. I trusted you to tell me the truth. I shouldn't have to ask for the full story, that should just be a given. I respected you after that call off, I really did. I thought you changed and turned a new leaf. But you didn't. You betrayed my trust. You used my faith in you as leverage to spread lies, assumptions, and false accusations. You lied to me. And I don't appreciate that. At all. And not only that, you decided that it would be a good idea to tell people that you removed the strikes when it was all me. Why would you lie about that? Why are you taking credit for the work I did to save Dillin's channel? Don't try and play games with me. If I wasn't there, those strikes wouldn't be gone and Dillin's channel would cease to exist. So yeah, Dillin's channel still being alive is my doing. So I'll take full credit for that. Thank you very much. In conclusion, I feel like there is a lot to learn from this story. Be consistent with your roles and apply them to everybody equally, even if you have to apply them to people that you like, because that shows people that you don't have double standards and that your moral compass doesn't fluctuate on a dime. Don't make up rules just to disassociate with people you deemed to be toxic. If you don't want to associate with people, just don't associate with them. You don't always have to give a long-winded explanation as to why you don't want to, just don't do it. And if they go on social media and disagree with you publicly, so what? Let them. It doesn't matter. Don't abuse a broken system when you know that you would scream foul if the exact same thing were done to you. I know that having your ass being blasted for hundreds of people to see isn't always fun, but don't try and mess with the law to silence mockery of your work. It never makes you look good. When telling your side of the story, tell everything, even the parts where you may look bad, because leaving that out speaks volumes about your character. It makes you seem like you have a victim complex, like everything was the opposition's fault and none of it was yours. When you tell the honest truth, and you're that open with telling your story, it shows that your pride, while you may still have it, hasn't blinded you from what you've done. It makes you much more trustworthy, and your words have far more value to them because the person can now see that you are self-aware and that you've reflected on what you've done. And the most important lesson that I think everyone can agree upon is this. When you do something scummy, and people rightfully call you out on the scummy filth that you have done, don't lie. Do not lie. And instead, admit to your wrongdoings and try your best to fix your mistakes. Don't try and back out of the conflict because it didn't go your way. Don't try and weed yourself out when you directly got involved. Step up, swallow your pride, admit that you were wrong, and fix your mistakes. And when there's a deal that was made after the whole ordeal, stick to the deal and leave the situation alone. My name is Manga Ryder, and to the people that even after seeing all of the evidence that back up my arguments, still decide to side with Legacy even after all the scummy actions that they've done just because they don't like Dillin and start smearing me as a Dillin lapdog, fuck you. You people make me sick.